Welcome, everyone, to the Transportation Conference. And if you could join me in the Pledge of Allegiance before we get started, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Great. Thank you very much. I'd like to welcome you all here. I appreciate your attendance. We have a really good, I think, roundup of speakers today on important issues in the county. This is really an exciting time in the county. I was delighted to see that a number of you were a few minutes behind, because that meant you were on the Parkway enjoying the new construction we'd been waiting so long for. But really great progress already on that project, and John will be filling us in more on that. But we're really excited about that project. I think it'll mean a great deal, not only to the safety for our travelers on those roadways, but also for our many tourism guests that visit us. There are a great number of other projects. I don't want to steal too much of Dale's thunder, but a number of projects that are going on. Dale has indicated to us that this is the busiest that Cape May County has ever been with capital projects in transportation, I think, in history, at least in Dale's history, and I think well beyond that. Unfortunately, some of that is a result of Superstorm Sandy, but a great number of the projects were already on the books and planned as well, and mean great improvements to our communities. And those are not only entryway projects and beautification projects and projects that'll help with functional circulation, but there's also a great number of bikeway projects that we're seeing now that are coming onto the forefront, and I think some exciting plans to link the entire county by bikeway. So a really great effort in that area, and we appreciate the part that is required to make that happen between not only the county and municipalities, but the state government as well. So I don't want to take up too much time here. We've got a great roundup, as I had mentioned, and I'd like to start off by introducing our first speaker, who's Senator Jeff Van Drew. Jeff needs very little introduction, of course, but among his many duties and responsibilities, Jeff is chair of the Community and Urban Affairs Committee, vice chair of the Military and Veteran Affairs Committee, and serves on the Budget and Appropriations Committee. Senator Van Drew served as chair of the Coastal New Jersey Evacuation Task Force and authored several pieces of legislation as a result of the findings of the task force. Jeff continues to advocate for Cape May County to have representation on state boards and authorities such as the New Jersey Turnpike Authority. Jeff?
Thank you, Freeholder Morey, and thank you all for being here. I want to thank the Board of Freeholders sincerely for the good work that they do. Freeholder Morey, it isn't every county that has these types of conferences, and we have them, as you know, on a yearly basis, whether it's dealing with evacuation and emergency issues, whether it's dealing with infrastructure or transportation issues, and it's always an honor for me to be here, and I thank you for that invitation and the work, again, that you do. Second, in the form of housekeeping, I just wanted to send the regards of Assemblyman Nelson Albano, who is covering for us in a whole different part of the district. Some of you may have seen him on crutches. He is doing fine. He separated his quadriceps tendon from his knee, which is an extremely painful process. And on the lighter note, Nelson is a maniac about going to the gym, as many of you know by now, and many of our friends are saying that's what going to the gym will do to you. So, Nelson, though, continues to go, and that's a good thing. And then finally, I have new to introduce to some of you. He's going to be our new assemblyman. In fact, last night he received the approval of the Atlanta, Cape May, and Cumberland counties. Sergeant Robert Andrewzak. Some of you may know Sergeant Andrewzak's name. He was on the Oprah Winfrey Show. He's been interviewed by many people. He is, and I'm not exaggerating, a national hero. He is a Bronze Star with Valor recipient and also has received the Purple Heart, and he is going to be our new assemblyman. Sergeant, just say hello to everybody real quick. I agree with Freeholder Morey. Boy, it was a good feeling to be on the Parkway, and I seldom say this and see all the activity and maybe just get here a couple minutes later because of what's gone on. Let me just speak for a second about Commissioner Simpson. And as you know, I'm not one that cares much about political parties. I care about getting stuff done, and I care about getting stuff done for South Jersey. That's what this is about. Commissioner Simpson has been committed to and dedicated to really moving serious projects forward in our region. I do sit on the budget committee, and on that budget committee, numerous times I've spoken, well, more than the budget committee, I have all the commissioners' numbers, I bug them all the time, but particularly on the budget committee, it's been good to hear the commissioner outline all of the projects that are occurring right around here. And I think if you were to total them all up, the number I come up to, when you look at our whole region, we're getting pretty close to, over the next years, $750 million of investment. And ladies and gentlemen, it's time. It really is time. We've had tremendous need for a number of years. Often South Jersey is forgotten about. I mean, this Parkway project and these lights, I was having fun with Freeholder Thornton a while back, because he and I both sat on this Freeholder board, and I know that we passed resolutions that something needed to be done then. I've been fighting that fight. Many people have been fighting that fight for so many years. Interesting question. Somebody came to me the other day, and I just wanted to clarify this, and they said, you know, it's real nice you're doing this and all, but it's going to create a lot of traffic inconvenience, a lot of problems for a couple of years, and hopefully not too many, and you're going to hear about that and what the plans are to make sure it isn't too bad. But why do we really need to do it? We just really need more state police monitoring the speed, and if folks went slower, we wouldn't have all the accidents that we have at the traffic lights. I think it's a valid question, but the answer to that is that it's counterintuitive. It is counterintuitive for all of those that drive on the Garden Parkway, when they actually reach a section of the parkway, a limited access roadway, a toll roadway that has traffic lights. So folks that are coming from other areas, and even our own folks that are local, they're just going too fast. Or even if they're not going too fast, the lights surprise them for whatever reason. And for that reason, regardless of the amount of patrols that you have or the amount of monitoring that you have on the parkway, you're going to have traffic jams and you're going to have rear-end collisions. I don't think there's anybody that's from Cape May County that doesn't know someone who was involved in an accident in some way, particularly at exit 10. Not only exit 10, but exit 10 always seems to be the worst. And it is a continuing problem, and my only hope is that in the process of building the overpasses that we don't have another one. We pray to God it doesn't happen. It is without question what's right. It's without question going to move traffic more quickly. It's without question going to help commuters. It's going to help with the tourism issues and the traffic getting blocked. But most importantly, at the end of the day, it's going to save lives. So I'm particularly grateful to the Turnpike Authority and the Department of Transportation, because quite frankly, after half a century of promises, the project is getting done. This is historic. And there may be some minor inconveniences in the interim, but at the end of the day, we're going to save lives, and that's a good thing. Another project, and again, I know Dale and everyone's going to go over some of these projects that we've been talking about and discussing and deciding what's going to happen, is the Beasley's Point Bridge and the Garden State Parkway. And for once, actually everything is falling in place, and that's really worked out well. In that, I think as some of you know, there are two bridges on the Garden State Parkway on the Great Egg. One of them was built in the 1970s, the other one was built in the 1950s. Originally, the bridge that was built, the southbound bridge in the 1950s, for those that remember, before many of our time in this room, but it was the only bridge. It was the only bridge. It was built in a style that we would no longer utilize for many different reasons. We don't, the Department of Transportation, the engineers, and many folks don't think it's as good as it should be. It's old, it needs to be replaced, it's not wide enough. And then you also have the issue of the Beasley's Point Bridge, and as many times I've reviewed this, why is that important, or why do we discuss that, is because we are a county that's a peninsula and we need access and egress. If there is an emergency storm, we need to get people out with the contra lane flow, which means the reverse lane strategy. Everybody's going north and west, except National Guard who are coming in. And that was the original plan and the purpose of the Beasley's Point Bridge early on in the storm. Later on in the storm, it would be non-functional. And again, the county, intelligently so, did due diligence on the bridge and found it just wasn't worth the investment to put the money into it, even if the Department of Transportation put a great deal of the money in. So the bridge is going to be demolished. A new southbound bridge is going to be built, which is going to be wider, and they're going to go into the details of that. And the good part about it is the demolishing of the Beasley's Point Bridge is actually going to help the state and the Department of Transportation, because it's going to be used for wetlands mitigation. And all these projects, whenever you utilize any wetlands or any area, you have to mitigate. And I think most of the folks in this room are somewhat involved, so they know what that means. That bridge is to a great degree going to act as that mitigation. When they demolish it, they're going to form wetlands there, increase the wetlands, and that's certainly going to be really productive and helpful. Also save money for the DOT, so they don't have to go out and actually purchase wetlands or put credits in somewhere else. That's a good thing. So that project's moving forward. That, I believe, is slated to start this spring, and again, you'll hear more details about that. It's starting very shortly, so we have a lot of activity. I'd like to talk about one project I'd like us to do, and I've just started to have some conversations with the commissioner about this, and I've had conversations over the years and keep trying, but I'm hoping that we really can come to some resolution of this. There are many projects actually, but particularly one most recently we've been discussing, Exit 20 in the Upper Township area. The Township Committee and the mayor for years have asked something be done there. As you know, it's not a full interchange. And we're hopeful at the very least that we got a southbound exit on Exit 20. Now, we need this to be done in other areas too, but particularly on 20 because of the growth up there. Exit 25 gets congested, there are issues there, and it causes traffic congestion, and we were hoping for that southbound exit. Now, engineers, and all the engineers will forgive me, sometimes they look at things a little different than regular folks, and sometimes they're right, and again, they're going to have to forgive me again. Sometimes I think they're not 100% right. They don't like any new interchanges that aren't full interchanges, which means that if the Turnpike Authority wants to do something there, they would want both a southbound exit and a northbound entrance. The southbound exit is not a big deal and relatively easy to accomplish. The northbound entrance goes across wetlands and is a complex procedure. It's a little expensive, there's mitigation issues involved, and would take some time. So my thought on this has been that let's get that southbound exit done, because that would help a lot. Engineers sometimes are concerned that they believe that whenever you do something like this, it has to be a full interchange, because if you have the southbound exit, you may mislead motorists who believe that there would also be that northbound entrance. I think we're going to have some discussions on that. And I would even love a staggered project where we could do the southbound exit first and get that done, because it's really going to help both commerce and business in Upper, as well as just the traffic congestion, and then later on do the northbound entrance. That's what I have, Freeholder. I really do appreciate the invitation. I believe you know and the county knows, and hopefully everyone knows that our legislative team is always available for anything. And we do again appreciate the invitation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions for the senator from anyone in the audience or anyone on the panel here?
These guys are too smart. Don't let them ask me the questions. What do y'all go?
Dale,
Leave me all these technical questions.
Dale, what'd you think about that engineer comment? Do you have anything to say about that?
Dale's a great man, but we've had our go-arounds, right, Dale? But he's a good man. Dale, it's common sense. Come on.
All right, great. Anyone? Any questions? All right, great. Senator, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, our next speaker is Richard Hammer, Assistant Commissioner of the New Jersey Department of Transportation. As Assistant Commissioner, Richard leads the department's capital program management organization. In this capacity, he's responsible for delivering the capital construction program that averages more than $700 million annually. Under his leadership, the department continues to deliver significant capital programs that focus on state of good repair and on congestion relief. Under his leadership as well, New Jersey has been recognized by the Federal Highway Administration as a national leader in value engineered savings. Richard.
Thank you very much, Freeholder. Good morning, everybody. Pleasure to be here on behalf of Commissioner Simpson. Since this conference series began some 9 years ago, much has been done by way of transportation investment here in Cape May County. Since 2005, we've invested approximately $475 million in Cape May, including capital construction projects as well as local aid projects. We've seen it with projects like the Route 52 Causeway. the Route 47 bridge over Dennis Creek in Dennis Township, the 49 Cape May Branch Bridge in Upper Township, Route 9 Breakwater Bennett's Extension in Lower Township. We've seen it with projects that are funded with local dollars, like the Avalon Boulevard Bridge rehabilitation in Avalon, traffic signal synchronization in Ocean City, JFK Boulevard reconstruction in Sea Isle City. These projects represent the types of investment we've made in Cape May County and symbolize the high value we place on our transportation system and our goal of unfettered mobility. It is perhaps one of the things we collectively value most and what has transformed our society in the last century, our ability to move freely around our towns, state, and country without restrictions or impediments. But nothing brought that into clearer focus than the events of October 28th and 29th of last year, when Hurricane or Superstorm Sandy slammed our state like nothing we've ever seen before. Let's just say that Sandy was one of the biggest impediments we'll see in our generation. That storm will forever be seared in our memories because it not only literally reconfigured the Jersey Shore as we know it, but Sandy showed us that even though we build our transportation system to stand up to the toughest tests, it can still be vulnerable. A headline from the day after the storm read, "Cape May residents dodge a bullet." I'm sure at that moment many of you didn't feel like you had dodged a bullet. You too endured significant hardships. But when you saw the devastation that the storm brought to other areas along our coast, you surely knew that you did not take the worst punch. In fact, just to the north of Ocean City, in neighboring Atlantic County, there was dramatic evidence. On Route 152 in Egg Harbor, the intersection of 152 and Ocean Drive was completely washed out from the storm surge. The damage consisted of heaved up pavement, twisted and bent guide rail, and tons of sand and water deposited on the roadway because the embankment had washed away. In just 10 days, we were able to restore access to Route 152 completely and have it open to traffic. And that was just one example of how NJDOT had to respond quickly to the destruction caused by Sandy. I'm sure many of you heard of or saw images of the breach up along Maniloking Township and the bay, where the ocean basically washed across the barrier island. It completely compromised Route 35, 12 and a half miles of Route 35, and it blocked access to the peninsula by way of the Maniloking Bridge. That's the only access to that peninsula other than the points north and on the southern end. We were able to seal that breach, restore Route 35, and reopen that bridge over the Barnegat Bay in a little over 7 weeks. And while we were working hard to make needed repairs to our system all across the state, I know that local forces here in Cape May had their hands full too, restoring county roads and municipal streets. It is still hard to think of such a calamity happening here in our state. But again, Sandy brought into sharp focus the fragility of our transportation fabric and how in an instant our taken for granted mobility is undermined. Now we are in the midst of recovering, and we will continue to recover for quite some time. But going through the experience has made us think more deliberately about how to reinstate our transportation system even faster the next time a Sandy arrives. And it's a good bet that there will be another Sandy, but hopefully not in our lifetimes. Hardening our infrastructure is a new term that we have been throwing around in the days since Sandy. As we rebuild transportation assets along the Jersey coastline, whether from storm damage or due to wear and tear from age, we are identifying opportunities to harden the roadways and bridges and make them more resilient and able to better withstand the forces of nature. An example is what we are proposing to do along Route 35 in Ocean County. In addition to the full reconstruction of the roadway, a 12.5-mile section, which was severely damaged by the storm, as I mentioned earlier, we will be building new pump stations to work in tandem with a new drainage system. It will cost us over $100 million to do this, but this is going to help prevent flooding that routinely occurs as a result of minor storms, mild in comparison to what Sandy brought. And we're accelerating that construction so that that work begins on the entire 12 and a half miles by this summer. We need to continue to make the right kinds of investment in our system to ensure not just safety and mobility, but also survivability. Right here in Cape May County, the new Route 52 causeway is a perfect example. It begs a moment to think about what could have happened if we didn't have a Route 52 causeway that was dependable. Can you imagine a primary evacuation route out of Cape May taken out of commission and not available during a major crisis? The same can be said about the new Route 36 Highlands Bridge up near Sandy Hook. The reconstruction and new construction efforts that are going on associated with the Route 72 Manahawkin Bay Bridge. We are also coordinating with FEMA and the Federal Highway Administration to see what other infrastructure in need of hardening may qualify for limited emergency relief funding. Examples of this might potentially be replacing certain movable bridges, raising or elevating mechanical electrical components of these movable bridges to get them out of harm's way, replacing aluminum sign structures which are aging, also addressing scour. Many of our bridges that are scour critical could need that addressing. And you don't need a Sandy for that, just an extremely heavy rain event like an Irene, like we had last year. Whether it's through hardening our infrastructure, our program, which emphasizes state of good repair, we have made a safety and mobility commitment, which is especially noticeable up and down the coast with projects like the elimination of the traffic signals along the Garden State Parkway that the Senator mentioned at exits 9, 10, and 11. Here in Cape May, ground was broken last month. We're investing over $100 million in that effort through the Turnpike Authority. The new construction and continued rehabilitation of the 72 Manahawkin Bay Bridge that provides the only access on and off the island. That's going to be a $300 million investment. The ongoing $900 million Garden State Parkway widening project from Atlantic County up to Toms River, including replacements of the Bass River and Mullica River bridges, and the new $200 million parkway span over the Great Egg Harbor and Drag Channel, which is scheduled to go later this spring, and John will mention that when he speaks. Our commitment to safety and mobility is bearing fruit. Some years ago, we began a program of sustained and targeted investments in our roads and bridges with two goals in mind: a reduction in the number of structurally deficient bridges on the state system and a reduction in the percentage of deficient pavements across the state. For the last 3 years, we have been investing over $700 million annually in our bridges and $300 million annually in pavements. And I'm happy to report that the results are starting to show. The slide you see here speaks of our pavement condition statewide. When I was last here in 2010, the condition of our pavements were such that basically 50% of our pavements were in acceptable condition, only 50. Today, we can report that 59% of our pavements are either in good or fair condition, a 9% increase. That's significant. That's what a sustained investment will do. On the bridge slide, it speaks of our state-owned structural deficient bridges. Again, when I was here in 2010, there were 4 structurally deficient bridges in Cape May County. Today, I will tell you we're down to 1, and that is the Route 50 Tuckahoe River crossing in Upper Township. That project is going to construction later this spring, which means when that bridge is completed, we will not have a single state-owned structurally deficient bridge in Cape May County. And you're the first county that can say that. And you can see with the investment in our structural deficiency avenue what that's doing to us. It's reducing that number overall. We have such an aging transportation system. As the Senator spoke, you have the Parkway crossing built in the 50s. So many of our bridges are reaching that 50, 60, 70-year point in their life. And it's at that time that repairs are needed. And in some cases, reconstruction is needed. When we were designing bridges in the old days, back in the 30s and 40s and 50s, thank goodness the engineers back in those days did a good job. We basically over-designed just about everything we built, and we've been enjoying that. But the time has come now to really address our system. And this type of investment, if we sustain it, will continue to show these kinds of improvements. Here in Cape May, we continue to promote a state of good repair. As I mentioned, the structural deficiency in Cape May will go away on our state system, including when it comes to roadways. There are over 45 miles of pavement that are going to be addressed by the New Jersey Department of Transportation along routes 9, 47, and 50 in the next couple of years, representing 22% of the state roadways in Cape May. In closing, we are trying to invest wisely in our transportation system throughout the state and right here in Cape May. Whether it's to foster our state of good repair efforts or to harden our system against the elements, smart investments will continue to pay off. And hopefully, the trends for pavement and bridge that I just outlined will continue to improve. What we're doing here at the NJDOT is just a piece of the overall transportation program in the state and locally. Other speakers today are going to touch upon significant investments that their agencies are making here. And they all serve to make our system one of the finest in the nation. On behalf of Commissioner Simpson, I again thank you for the opportunity to be here and to speak before you. Thank you.
Rich, thanks very much. Dale, you and I are probably thinking the same thing there. We have a bridge or two we could sell to Rich. With all that fine work, I was thinking of a couple that we'd like to follow your lead in being on top of. But at any rate, any questions for the Assistant Commissioner today?
Yes.
Question for you, sir. I'm wondering if there's any plans to at some date finish our Route 55 up to Philadelphia.
All right, lock the doors. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I mean, listen, Route 55 has been talked about for a long time. The focus of our program at this point, as I outlined, is state of good repair. We have to make sure that what we have is safe, not only for our generation, but for generations to come. And that's going to take sustained investments in the numbers that I've outlined. We're really not at this point, as an agency, investing monies and building new roads and basically just widening at will roads that are out there. We really have to look hard at those types of investments and really make sure that we're comfortable where we are in our state of good repair before we start dropping dollars into new roads. I'm not saying Route 55 isn't a great idea, but right now, with the limited funds that we have available, we need to put those dollars towards our state of good repair in our system. And we're just not where we want to be there at that point.
Just one follow-up. When we leave New Jersey, drive around the rest of the nation, we see vastly better roads than these, which we have not improved in design in the last 6 decades. And so I'm wondering, where are these people getting their money for their roads? I heard your question, but we do have that issue.
New Jersey has one of the older infrastructures in the country. New Jersey and our neighbors. Our roadways date back many more decades before some of the states out in the Midwest and further west. Not only that, our weather plays a part too. And when we get snowfall here in New Jersey, and fortunately this year may not have been as bad as some other years, but some of the chemicals and the agents that we use to treat snow and whatnot, that's not helping our system. Other states don't have that problem. So the unfortunate thing is we're also a very, very densely populated state, as you know. I don't need to tell you that. So our roads, on average, have a much higher traffic volume than what you'll see in a lot of our neighbors. So we have a lot of extra obstacles to deal with, a lot of hurdles to overcome. That's really the best answer I can give you.
Rich, quick, with respect to 55, has the storm event of Irene, where we had the evacuation essentially of nearly the entire county, we look at the Sandy event, which of course occurred when the community really wasn't anywhere near capacity. Does that come into play at all in terms of thinking, when one looks at 55 and its sort of uses or its importance? Certainly evacuation out of the community is one of them. Has that come up, do you think, in the consideration of whether 55 should be completed? And I know there are environmental issues that certainly would have to be addressed, and there's been discussion of making it a toll road and things like that. But I'm just wondering whether or not the evacuation and safety side of it maybe has put that on a different level than it was prior.
Again, the part of the organization where I work, we deliver a capital program that's been developed. And we're handed projects that have acceptance, and there's a decision to move forward on them. I do know, certainly, the idea of safe evacuation is on everyone's minds, and that's why you have some of these good projects that are advancing right now. so that you have a safe crossing, in Upper Township on Route 50 to get across the Tuckahoe River. The Parkway, or the Turnpike Authority, I should say, they're going to be building, dependable redundancy in the crossing over the Great Egg Harbor. Ocean City, I mean, we've just built a brand new causeway on Route 52 to ensure that you have a safe evacuation. So that's on the forefront of our minds. And I think moving forward, we're going to continue to be focusing on what can we make even better. But right now, I can't stand here and speak of a Route 55 project on our books. But what I can say, and to basically reiterate what the senator said, our investment here in Cape May County since 2005, whether it's the Turnpike Authority or the New Jersey Department of Transportation, is staggering. It's approaching numbers like $800–900 million. So we're certainly showing that we are investing here, and we're going to make Cape May County the best it can possibly be. So I'm sure those discussions will continue on as we move forward.
Okay, thank you. Just two thoughts, and you're right, the investment has been staggering and we truly appreciate it. Historic, actually, is the word for it, so that's good. The 55 issue is more, I mean, certainly it's a fiscal issue and there's the cost involved, but as the freeholder alluded to, there could even be a discussion of, there are some of those who'll say, well, you could make the new part of 55, just the new section, a toll road. That's not even the major issue, it's the environmental issue. It is a huge issue and a huge obstacle and a huge challenge. I've had legislation for years that said, let's go forward with at least a preliminary design. And quite frankly, there hasn't been a whole lot of support for it. That's because of geographic reasons, it's because of cost reasons, and it's because that the environmental opposition to moving forward there, and everybody should really understand this, is not local, it's not just New Jersey, it's not just, I mean, literally, you will actually have resistance from agencies, authorities, and organizations worldwide. They consider that, and Art, you and I have spoken about this, some of the most unique wetlands anywhere in the world. Now, I believe that you could have a raised elevated highway, that there are things that could be done, but the environmental opposition to even that is tremendous. And that's what's really, truly, I believe, blocked the project. Because otherwise, even with the cost factor, we'd be moving forward a little bit with some of the preliminary design stuff and starting to look at it. It's huge opposition. Every time I put my bills in to just say, hey, let's do a preliminary design of it, we get calls and we get letters and we get resolutions and information from literally, again, not just the East Coast, from around the country. People are really focused on this. Organizations like Sierra Club, Audubon, Nature Conservancy, all are focused and opposed to the project. Now, what happens when that occurs, quite frankly, is, in my opinion, and you can correct me, Rick, if I'm wrong, DOT's got a lot on its plate, a lot of challenges and a lot of projects. So they're looking at things, and before they can even start to move forward on that, if they've got people that are literally saying, hey, we're ready to go, everything's kind of falling in place, and you have something where you have a firestorm, it's hard to get that moving. It doesn't mean we still don't try, Art. On a lighter side, I can remember, I think it was years and years ago, there was a freeholder election, and somebody was running and saying, if you elect me, we'll get 55 done. I don't know if you remember that. They had big signs throughout the county. This is for people who know their Cape May County history. And I just smiled at the time, and I still smile when I think back on that. It is a very, very difficult challenge. It doesn't mean we shouldn't give up, that we should give up on it. We shouldn't. But we really have to focus on just how we can at least get the preliminary design study done. But I would think it would be some sort of a raised system, which is very expensive, by the way, as you all know.
Senator, can I ask you a question, please?
Sure.
That's Sam Field, the Cumberland County freeholder, and 55 is certainly of large relevance. And I understand the environmental impacts, and I know that it's a huge issue, and it should be, there's no question about it. But it seems like we were able to overcome it down here with the interchanges that you're doing on the Parkway. So I'm just wondering that, and I know it's a long process, that why this shouldn't be looked at. Cumberland County is the poorest county in the state. And I always look at Cape May County because of the interconnectivity of the two counties. So the completion of 55 certainly help your tourism down here as well, and would help bring, help with our economic development in Cumberland County. So actually, in a sense, I'm urging that, we really push forward and get, try to get this done. Because there has been talk, but there's been no movement.
And I that, and I've had it in the past, I'd appreciate a resolution from the board, from both boards of freeholders saying, hey, we support the legislation. That would at least give you that preliminary design, at least get started on the process and get it on the table and talk about it, and we'll push it.
All right, great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rick. All right, great. Our next speaker will be Sam Donaldson. Sam is Acting Executive Director from the South Jersey Transportation Authority, and as such, she's responsible for the planning, design, construction of all capital improvements on the Atlantic City Expressway and the Atlantic City International Airport. Sam will provide an update on the SJTA, including Atlantic City Airport, the airport connector, and plans for future development. Sam?
Well, thank you, Freeholder. It's a pleasure to be with you here again this year, and it's a pleasure to be with a senator and such a distinguished panel. And before I get going, and I have a few slides that I want to run you through, so I want to apologize in advance if there's too many slides. I'll try and make it understandable. But I want to follow up on the question about Route 55, and I know that the County Board of Freeholders passed a resolution some years ago. I think at the time, if I'm not mistaken, asking the South Jersey Transportation Authority to look into it, and the news section, as you said, Senator, they even were requesting it be done, even if it was a toll road. I'll tell you, we have not done, certainly it's two big issues, not to state the obvious, but it's funding and it's the environmental issues. And I agree, in my humble opinion, and I'm one of those engineers that you were referring to earlier too, Senator. I know. It is tremendous hurdles from an environmental standpoint, not insurmountable, but huge. And whenever you have to address environmental issues, it's just going to drive the cost up necessarily. In order to pay for that, even through tolls, and if my memory is correct, it would be somewhere in the neighborhood of an 18 to 20 mile extension. The price that you would have to charge on tolls would almost make it counterproductive. And nobody wants to pay for tolls, understandably, if that's how it had to be paid for. But what you don't want, and given the fact that it would be very seasonal in nature, much like the Atlantic City Expressway, you would have to be very cognizant and careful for the amount of money that you would have to charge, so that at the end of the project, it doesn't drive away business at the same time by charging $20 or something of that nature. So it's just something else to keep in mind. Let me jump into it. For those who are not familiar with South Jersey Transportation Authority, you're probably not in the room today. But we run the Atlantic City Expressway, the Atlantic City Airport. We do regional transportation. We run about 40 shuttle buses or buses all over South Jersey, connecting the underemployed or unemployed to employers. And we are, according to our enabling legislation, responsible for economic development, specifically as it relates to transportation projects. So we're not going to be using toll money to build a fine arts center or anything of that nature, but we can use it for transportation economic development projects. Just a couple slides on the effects that Hurricane Sandy had on us. And thankfully, our facilities were not hit nearly as bad as they were up north, but you can see the picture there on the left is a picture of the expressway about 4.5 miles outside of Atlantic City. There's supposed to be 3 lanes there, and you have about half of one lane that does not have some debris or water on it. This was when the second high tide came through late in the night of Monday, October 29. And then you can see the picture on the right there, our Sunoco station about 3 miles outside of the city. So we had a good 12 inches or so of water there. First time ever in the history of the Atlantic City Expressway that it had been flooded. So this was definitely a historical storm, even though we didn't bear the brunt of it. Our guys did a great job. They worked all through the night. We took over 50 dump truck loads of debris that had washed up onto the roadway from the Back Bay area. And we did experience some fairly significant erosion on the side of the road. We did full ground penetrating radar on the last 5 miles of the roadway. There was no significant issues underneath the pavement, although we did mobilize contractors, and within a day and a half we had any issues addressed. And then the sun comes out in the next couple of days. We like many of the transportation agencies, we repaired everything. We lost, I don't know if I mentioned it, we lost between revenue that was not experienced at the airport and the expressway plus all the repair costs, it cost us about $1.9 million. So it was a pretty substantial hit financially to us. And now we have hazard mitigation, resiliency projects, call it what you want, to make sure that we protect against similar occurrences. Given the fact, especially the expressway is the evacuation route for Atlantic City and would tie into those contraflow lanes at the Parkway as well as we empty Cape May County, Absecon Island, and so forth. So we want to do all we can to make sure it doesn't happen. The larger picture you see there in the right, that's a picture, I took that myself. I was sitting on our connector roadway right before you go into the tunnel to take you to the Marina District. In the far out is the Back Bay there, near the Venice Park area. The area in the near ground, which is underwater, is the southern part of the park that's over top of the tunnel. So the Back Bay water had breached our bulkhead, but luckily our tunnel walls are another 3 or 4 feet higher, so the tunnel remained high and low and dry, remained dry through the whole thing. We're looking at the possibility of raising the last 4.5 miles of the expressway. Cost is estimated at $250 million, which no doubt is probably high. And then also some parts of the connector leading to the tunnel, and then other projects which I won't go into. But if we were fortunate enough to get this mitigation type money, we're looking at $300 million worth of improvements to our facilities. So here's what our capital budget looks like for this year, and then for the 10-year capital plan. So for 2013, and we're on a calendar year basis, we have $43.5 million to spend between airport facilities and non-airport facilities. And you can see the split there, 63% of which would be spent on the expressway and the remaining on the airport. You can see the value on the right of what our 10-year program is. That stands at about $731 million. And we do not have that money, but we look at our 10-year plan as a planning document, and as money comes in, it outlines the projects that the money will be put towards. Before we can spend any money on any capital projects, though, I'd like to tell you what we've done as we try to